Hi Gary, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Great. Welcome to Better with Age. Perhaps a good place to start is a little self-introduction. Where are you? Who are you? What do you do?
Okay, I live in a place called Waikanae, which
Okay.
is north of Wellington in the North Island of New Zealand. Essentially, going back 20 or 30 years, it was a sort of a retirement area. It's a little bit different now, although I'm retired. But with the expressway into Wellington and high speed trains, there's a lot more commuters in the area now. So I'm retired. I retired at 75 after 57 years of working
Wow.
because I really love my job. Yeah, I'm pretty active. I live alone. I lost my partner to cancer a few years ago. But yeah, I've got family close by, which is great. So yeah, three sons and seven grandchildren and four great grandchildren. So yeah, family close by.
Okay. Okay. And you mentioned you loved your job. What did you do?
I've been in timber and hardware all my life. Yeah, I was managing a timber yard and working with a lot of young people, which is great because it kept me young as well. I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
Okay. So I got thoroughly confused looking at your Facebook post a little while ago, where you listed the events where you're aiming to be in the top 10. And I was asking myself, which are you more comfortable with, the shorter or the longer rows? And I couldn't work it out.
Yeah, well, I like to do well in all of them, to be honest. I think probably what separates it is that really 500 meters, 100 meters, 1 minute probably is different training to 1K, 2K and above. Yeah, it's quite specific, those shorter races. Bit of strength training involved, a lot of fast repetition. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I'm probably more comfortable 2K and above, I think. Although a few years back I was number one in the world for a 500 meters, but that was the year I broke the New Zealand record. So,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Well, I don't think you've really answered my question because you seem to be doing everything. So that's great. That's great.
In a way, I wouldn't like to answer too much in case my Aussie competitors look at this program. Yeah. But 2K and above, probably. Yeah.
Okay, okay. When did you start rowing, Gary?
Yeah, well, that's quite interesting. I grew up basically playing rugby in the wintertime and athletics in the summer. I was quite handy, but sort of at a provincial level, yeah, county level, never at the national level. But, I won quite a few championships and actually sort of played rugby fairly seriously up until I was about 40. But athletics was the thing that carried me on into masters games. And I really fell into rowing by chance. I got injured at the Masters Games in Dunedin, and Jan and I just happened to wander into a hall where there was all these crazy guys racing on ergs, and that was in 2006. So that's when I got into it. Yeah,
And what did you do in athletics? What was your discipline?
200 meters, 400 meters, 800 meters. Yeah, yeah.
And what position did you play when you were playing rugby?
I played lock. Yeah, a bit of a beanpole, so probably weight was against me from really going all the way to serious rugby. Yeah,
So a tall rugby player who can sprint.
yeah.
And you mentioned you walked into a hall full of people rowing. Can you tell us a little bit about the erg scene in New Zealand, the Concept Two competition?
Yeah, our competition here is really only two meetings a year. So I quite often go to Australia. Um, yeah, I find the Aussies, they're tough men. So I like to go over there. But
Okay.
which is really why the diamonds and the whole concept two thing is critical. Yeah.
So you would actually go to Australia specifically for events?
Yeah, I use the Peak plan, the Peak 2K plan, pretty much. I'm 80 in June, so I don't row the 6 days of a Peak plan. I mix it up with some cycling. And I follow the plan, but I don't row the 6 days out of 7 that it talks about.
Okay, I saw a picture of you with a bike. So, what do you do when you're biking? Is it road biking, or are you off the roads?
Yeah, well, I'm sort of an organizer for a group called the Kapiti Cruisers, 140 odd on the email tree.
Okay.
And so I do a mountain bike ride on a Tuesday, normally 40 or 50 Ks. And then on a Saturday, we have a road bike ride, and that's 60 Ks. The pace is on for that ride. Tuesdays are more of a relaxing ride.
Okay, it doesn't sound that relaxing to me, but so you've been playing competitive sport all of your life, really?
Yeah, pretty much. When the kids were younger, it was probably a little bit more social and not quite so much training. But yeah, pretty much all my life.
So how do you view your exercise now? Is it fun, discipline? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, well, that's why I like to mix the biking up with the rowing because the biking is gives me some social. I'm out riding with other people, and that's a little bit different to the erg training, which of course is pretty much always on my own. So yeah, I guess in a way I'm probably a perfect erger because I'm a little bit bloody minded. So yeah, I don't mind getting into a room with just myself and the erg. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an unusual state of mind. The competition is with yourself as much as anybody else.
Yeah, I'm very much a sort of a person who does exercising to pace. So I keep a book of all of the different rows that I'm doing, and I concentrate on pace very much. Yeah.
And as you get older, how have your goals changed with exercise?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I've learnt to perhaps break things up a bit as you get older. It's quite interesting. The 2 rest days a week that I have probably do me a lot of good because of the age thing. I've also changed my rowing technique. I basically used to hop on the machine and monster it, essentially. But talking to Rod and talking to other people in the group, I probably have a much lower drag factor.
Okay.
And I concentrate on the higher stroke rate and also my breathing technique. I take 2 breaths each stroke. And
Okay.
yeah, it's just works for me. Yeah.
So 2 breaths each stroke, and then does that help you with the power of the next stroke? Is that the reason you're doing it?
Well, I'm doing it essentially. I'm doing it essentially to take in as much oxygen as I can. Yeah, so it helps me sort of keep a lot of lactic acid out of my system because I'm taking in more oxygen. Yeah.
And do you suffer from cramps at all, or any of those other things that can happen with over exercising or
No, I'm pretty lucky. I do stretch every morning. I have a little routine that I find that I need to go through, and I'll stretch a lot before rowing, and I probably warm up now a little bit longer than when I was younger.
And are you living with long-term injuries? I mean, a lot of rugby players have got something that you're still living with now.
Yeah, my knees are not the best, but rowing and biking, of course, is it's pretty easy on the knees really. But I don't have any sort of major pain or injuries that I have to deal with. I'm pretty lucky like that.
And you mentioned that you're going to be 80 soon. So that's the next category, isn't it? The next age group.
Oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. um, I mean, I hope to set a New Zealand record in every distance that I possibly can. Yeah,
Wow.
so
Wow. Where will you start? What will you do?
I'll probably start with a 2K. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
And do you row on slides at all, or is it all the static machine?
no, I don't row on slides. I think I'm a bit of a purist, but I think the other thing is that I couldn't compete in any slide competition. I don't have any real major injuries, and so I find that static erg doesn't, do me. Yeah.
Okay, okay. And have you rowed on the water, Gary?
No, I haven't. um, I wish I had. When I was at college, our college or high school, they didn't have a rowing team. But hey, there's some things that you haven't done. So it's interesting to go to the games here in Australia and see the techniques of the guys who've rowed on water, because it can be different. And also the guys who rowed in surf boats, they have a slightly different technique as well. So yeah, it's interesting.
What do you see as the difference between what you're doing and the rowers on water then in terms of technique?
Yeah, they generally would have a lot lower stroke rate. Yeah, a lower stroke rate, and I just find the higher stroke rate suits me. But I've noticed the guys that row on water tend to have a lower stroke rate than I would have. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned school and when you started out. Who inspired you, or how were you inspired to, commit to a lifetime playing competitive sport?
Yeah. I, I think I've always had a bit of a thing about me when I was playing rugby or running. I might get beaten, but you'd have to run bloody hard to beat me. You know what I mean? Or when I was playing rugby, I could handle being beaten, but I'd shake your hand afterwards and say, well, you bested me. Yeah. So at training, I'd probably train harder than anyone. But yeah, just I've always had a thing that, you know, you got to be good to beat me, sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And are you coached? Do you get coached these days, Gary?
Well, I pick up a lot of tips from people like Bill Nurge and others. I find the diamonds absolutely, when you live at the bottom of the world, and there's not a lot of meetings and things going on. I mean, the contact through the diamonds is just yeah, it's amazing, inspiring. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Is there something in your rowing or your technique that you could do better?
Um, I guess, well, if I wanted to really work on my sprints, the 100 metres, 500, 1 minute. We also have a 300 metre in New Zealand, which is a little bit different. But for instance, I went to Australia to row against a guy. He and I are about number 4 and 5 in the world. And yeah, so I managed to beat him in the 2K and 1K, but he bested me in the 500 and 100. Yeah, it's a slightly different technique, and you do need to do some different training for it. There's no doubt about it. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
And you talked a little bit about flexibility. What is it what's the flexibility that you're working on?
Well, I have a bit of trouble with my psoas muscle, that major sort of muscle. So stretching in the morning, stretching before rowing, stretching before I train is important. Um, yeah, just to sort of keep things moving. Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned you take a couple of days off a week. Is that complete rest, or are those days when you do stretching, or how does it work?
Oh yeah, I'd probably go for a walk on the beach or do something. Yeah, I'd keep moving, maybe do some yard work or something. But yeah, just to try and give the muscles a rest. I had some heart issues a few years ago, and I've just had those sorted out. So it wasn't heart disease; it was electrical atrial fibrillation, which I think is something a lot of older athletes get.
Yeah, but it's not often you talk to somebody who's had those kind of issues who enjoys sprinting.
Yeah, it's something that developed, 4 or 5 years ago. I've actually now had an ablation, which has been fantastic. I was very lucky. I had two cardiologists. One's a cyclist, and the other is a rower. So, and I said to the rower after the procedure, I said, "Where can I start rowing?" And he said, "Tomorrow."
Wow.
So I managed to. I went out and I broke 5 New Zealand records in the next 5 or 6 weeks. So it really set me up. Yeah.
Wow, that's phenomenal. Are there many diamonds near you in New Zealand, in Wellington?
15 or 20.
Okay.
Um, yeah, there might be 3 or 4 at a meeting. Some of them are a little bit more into the distance,
Yeah.
and they like to do the concept two challenges.
Yeah.
There's probably half a dozen or so who actually go to the Masters Games. Go to the regattas. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you see yourself getting more into the distance as you get older?
Um, no, I think probably I'll try and do the range if I can. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not really. I mean, a half marathon's not a problem, but I'm not really a marathon or. I'm not a sort of a guy that sits down and does a marathon. That's not me. Uh, 10Ks I quite like. I often do them in training, but yeah, an hour on the machine is good for me. 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you do 10K, how do you do that? I mean, I do 10K a lot, and I'm very slow at the start, and I speed up at the end. Um, you're somebody who likes the shorter distances, so do you start fast and then settle into a rhythm and end up more slowly?
No, I would always look for negative splits. Yeah, I'd want each 2K to be negative split. So if I was aiming for say 2 minutes 10, let's say I'd probably start at about 2:13, 2:14, and then gradually work my way down and hope to be finishing at sort of 2 minutes 8, 2 minutes 9. Yeah, that's the sort of way I'd tackle it. Yeah.
Wonderful. And Gary, when are you 80?
14th of June.
Okay, so it almost coincides with the new year for the records.
It does. Yeah, it does. I'll probably be um, just sort of training, not posting too much until until I'm 80.
Oh, wonderful. Well, it's great talking to you. I mean, you really seem to be an all rounder in so
Yeah.
many ways, and it sounds like a interesting community between New Zealand and Australia.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Great, good to meet you, Gary, and we'll be looking out for you after the 14th of June. And good luck.
Thank you very much. It's been great talking.
Cheers.